Join us now then on this trip through history to see what's happened to the 38th over those 25 years. Here we have Scout Summer Camp near Llantony Abbey in South Wales. We had, I think there was 3 or 4 patrols. Here we are getting ready for flag break. David Lewis making sure that everybody's tidy. And following flag break, some prayers. Having saluted the flag, of course. And then some investitures. Can't see because they've got their back to us, although it looks a little bit like Robert Webb, but I can't be sure about that. But being brought by their patrol leader out to be invested at camp. And then off, getting ready for the rest of the day. We had an ingenious device that was supposed to supply the leaders with constant hot water. It worked at times, but only at times. David Lewis trying to do a plumbing job on it and to work out why it wasn't working, as did Skip. But and then a very elaborate gateway produced by Jonathan Klein, and Kim Tackey trying out yet another gate, not Jonathan's, but I think that was his. Sunday, and here we are with Scout Zone, and a beautiful sunny day, which is what you want when you're out in the open and there's not much chance of shade. As was normal after Scout Zone, we usually enjoyed the countryside, but pretty sure that's Debbie Day sat at the end of the Scouts there taking the sacrament. Looks like Skip's giving a lesson here. And then after we finish that, off for a hike. Beautiful part of the world, the mountains of South Wales. And here we are in the Brecon Beacons. David putting on his thick socks and hiking boots. Jonathan Klein was rather famous for his bobble hat. Robert Webb, there's a Farrant there. We're climbing up now towards the high points. There's Ted Bath Taylor climbing up to sort of 3,000 foot at the top of the Brecon Beacons. Cloud now below us, so it gives an indication of how high we are. And then stopping for a packed lunch. And then getting ready again, coats on, so looking forward to some inclement weather. And when it rains in the Brecon Beacons, it sure rains. Very misty now. It's very easy to get lost because a series of valleys and peaks that everyone looks after like every other, especially in these sort of weather conditions. And the Brecon Beacons consists of about 4 series of valleys and peaks to go from one end to the other. and we've made it to a trig point. Now whether that's Penny Van, I'm not quite sure, but I think we did get up to the top of Penny Van, which is the highest point on the Brecon Beacons. And when the weather's good, there's a tremendous view from up there, because you're 2/3 of a mile high, and you can see on a good day the Bristol Channel. Stopping for another break. Jonathan, as usual, throwing some stones down the mountain, irrespective of who might be down there. And having reached a high point, back down into one of the valleys again. It's just up and down, very tiring. And here we are at camp, cleaning up after breakfast. The more you burn, the more scouring you've got to do to clean the saucepans. And then a frog as a visitor. And then out to about 100-foot cliff towards Abergavenny, a few miles from Llangatach. It's used by the mountain rescue teams for training, and we did some abseiling there under the direction of Bill Cooper Jr., who was more experienced than most and could get down that 100 foot in about 3 or 4 seconds, whereas most of us took a minute or so to get down. The younger ones sometimes didn't do the whole journey, they just did a short stretch. And Debbie and David Day, who were quite young at the time, just did it one little bit and then got so scared they had to come back up again. Now that's not how to abseil. You're supposed to lean back and put your feet on the rock, but that was Robert Webb, who had a fit of nerves, I think, and just clung to the rocks and struggled. This is Bill Cooper. I think he did about 3 leaps and he was down. That was how to do the job properly. And that's definitely Roger Farrand. I can tell by his legs. I think he was one of the patrol leaders at the time, and he got so far, then just hung there and spent quite a while getting down the last few feet. But everybody made it safely down in the end. And then back to camp. A rope bridge across the stream. There was a stream running at the bottom of the campsite. We did use it to keep things cool, like bacon. The trouble is we forgot about the otters and things, and badgers, and most of our bacon got eaten after they gnawed their way through the thick plastic bag. Again, Bill showing us how it should be done. That occupied a good half a day, and of course some didn't quite make it and ended up in the stream, which was only a few feet deep, so it wasn't a disaster. Here we have a view of the whole campsite. And back to breakfast. Matthew Lewis cooking sausages. I think that was Rob Webb with his orange top. And Kim Tackey on the right there. After 40 years, it's difficult to remember everybody's names. And there was Robert and in fact 2 Roberts, Robert Farrant and Robert Webb, off on their overnight hike. And then I think it's Kim Tackey and Roger. Yes, Kim Tackey and Roger Farrant doing the same thing. And here they are back the following morning, having hiked and spent the night out on their own. And they then produced a log of it. The inevitable football match. This time we were sort of playing ourselves. There weren't any other scouts about. So this time we could ensure the 38th did win. And then an inspection. Oh, looks like Skip's found a speck of litter that everybody else has missed. Eventually they got to know my techniques. Peel back the anything that might be covering things up. And then there was always inspecting the toothpaste to see whether the tube would have ever been opened and whether the soap was still dry and in its wrapper. Jonathan Klein working out a route on the map with a silver compass. And showing the others how to do it. And Roger Farrant looking a bit mystified when he came to try and tie a particular knot. Oh, it looks like a fireman's chair that they're doing. Robert seems to be getting on quite well. And then locking it with a half hitch each end. And then trying it out. And it worked, I think. There we are. He leaned back and the others held him, and here we have our Kayla and Wilbath Taylor building up the fire, ready for our evening meal. Start with small stuff, but we obviously need something bigger to cook, and here they are preparing chicken. I think the scouts chopped theirs up into pieces and then put them in foil and along with potatoes and cooked them in the oven, in the fire. But the leaders decided they'd do it all in one go. And Skip suggested a time of about 30 minutes it would need. The fire, however, was very, very hot, and I think you'll soon see that the leaders ended up with a totally cremated chicken, so they had just vegetables to eat. But meanwhile the scouts carry on with their preparation of hacking it. There we are. There's the leader's cremated chicken, which wasn't fit for anybody to touch. So only the scouts ate chicken. The leaders just had a roasted potato. And off we go on another hike, and this one was directly from the campsite down the valley, up onto the top first. Then we've got Ted Bath Taylor up through the bracken. Here's David Lewis, of course, with his camera, keeping the insects away with some heather and fern. And from here being able to look right across the valley to the other side. Eventually then we went down the valley again to Cumyoy Church. Very interesting because it's there's not a right angle in it, all sorts of crazy shapes and sizes. We looked around that before going back up the valley and working our way back up towards Flantony Abbey, which is in fact just the remains of an abbey. And then it was time to start packing things up before Bill Cooper Senior arrived with his he worked for a television company, worked with his van arrived in order to take all our equipment back to Bristol along with a few cars. That was quite a successful camp. We didn't have any particular disasters there. So we're gathering for a final few words, a final prayer, and then a dismissal before we get into the vehicles and make our way back home after a successful summer camp.